All right, Shame listeners, mark your calendars. The 17th Annual Milwaukee Film Festival is set for April 24th through May 8th, 2025. Get ready for an incredible lineup of films, from thought-provoking features to compelling short films across a variety of programs, including Worldviews, North American Independence, Genre Queer, Black Lens, Sound Vision, Cine Sin Fronteras, Rated K for Kids, and the always bold Cinema Hooligante. Hosted at Milwaukee Film's historic Oriental and Downer theaters, the festival promises an unforgettable cinematic experience. Tickets and passes are now on sale with special discounts for Milwaukee Film members. For all the details, visit www.mkefilm.org/MFF. Once again, that website is www.mkefilm.org/MFF. Be sure to check them out.
Warning! This movie podcast actually discusses movies. Be aware that it may discuss any of the following elements: endings, surprise twists, unexpected cameos, and all manner of spoilers. If this doesn't appeal to you, then why listen to a movie podcast? Without further ado, please enjoy our feature presentation, The Shameless Picture Show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Shameless Picture Show. I am your host, Michael Viers, and today I'm being joined with, I guess, the person at this point I could make my honorary go-to co-host. We have Austin Proctor. Austin, for those of you who don't remember, or maybe this is your first time listening, is the host of the horror podcast Frightmares, as well as the sobriety podcast All Juice, No Gin. But then he also is the producer and cinematographer for the upcoming horror comedy short film Dust Bunnies. How you doing, Austin?
I am doing well today. It's Sunday, and morning podcasts with Mr. Viers are always a nice way to start or end my weekend. So.
I am the Folgers for your weekend.
Yes. I like the way you put that, yeah.
You're very welcome. So, how's prep on Dust Bunnies going? I know you're shooting this. Well, by the time the people hear this episode, he would have already shot it. But whatever, I don't give a shit. It's my show. I know you're about to shoot it this weekend.
Oh yeah. So we're obviously doing pre-production. We're working on all the practical effects because really the only thing we want to do in post is add some. You know, we don't really want to throw a whole bunch of dust around the house, so the dust will be shot practically and then imposed over so we don't have to get the house dirty. So we're going through that. There's also going to be a fun practical effect at the end that I won't spoil because I want everyone to watch it. And my sister-in-law is doing the storyboard where she's putting all the shots out and like the shot list and everything. So it's coming together. But it's still very stressful because I've never done this and I want to make sure we do it right. So, but it's exciting, but stressful.
That's something I wanted to talk about too. Because it always throws me when I find out that for all intents and purposes, this is your first film. I know you've done a little bit of documentary work and, you know, you played around with some stuff, but this is your first time making a narrative short film. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, I used to, as a kid, I used to film everything. My dad always had some sort of a camera, so I would either use his, you know, the big VHS ones that they used
Sammy
to have.
Fableman over here.
Yeah, yeah, and then he got a digital one, so I've been editing and putting stuff to music, like we used to do BMX compilations and scooter compilations, all sorts of shit.
So cool.
We used to do little skits, too, when I was younger, so it's like... And I edit stuff, I go to haunted houses and I'll usually do a video for haunted houses in the spooky time. So it's like I love editing. I know how to edit. I love sound design. I know how to do all this stuff, but I've never put that towards an actual narrative like film. So this will be my first foray into that. So it's exciting because I have a lot of knowledge, which is all self-taught. So I've taught myself all this stuff, but it's also completely stressful because, again, we want to make sure it's how we laid it out. So, you can envision one thing, but then it might be a little different when you get everything all together and you're editing it. So we shall see.
It's crazy how much stuff you can self-teach yourself. So I'm a little bit older than you. I don't think by much, but I think I'm a little bit older than you. But when I was in film school, YouTube was clearly around, but there wasn't as many people on YouTube. There wasn't as many 12-year-olds on YouTube showing me how to use fucking Final Cut Pro. Like, I feel
Right.
like there's so many, like, here's what happens when you use a mirrorless sensor. There's just so many more.
Like, how the fuck do you know this? It's so young.
But
Yeah.
where I taught, so I did go to film school, but there was a lot of things there's a lot of great stuff I learned there, but then there's things I wasn't learning, and not because they were like not teaching me or whatever. It's just some things don't come up. So like where I would learn a lot of stuff was from watching DVD and Blu-ray special features.
Mm-hmm.
Like I especially loved like the two that I usually go for. If there's an interview with the effects artist, or if there's an interview with the cinematographer, I'll go in and listen to that. And a lot of times it's I'm not gonna lie. A lot of times it is like just people being like, "Yeah, I met Ted V. Michaels at this time, and I shot that." Sometimes it's nothing, but like there was times where I was watching behind the scene features for Argento movies, and they'd Blue Underground would have like the effects artist on there, and they would break down completely how they would do some of the effects. I'm like, oh well, I should be writing this down.
Oh man, that's a great idea. I should see if the Maniac Blu-ray that you so nicely sent me for, I think it was Christmas, see if they have Tom Savini on there talking about how he did that fucking head explosion.
They do.
I bet you. Okay, then I need to watch that this week.
Tom
Perfect.
Savini is great because I don't think he throws anything away. So he's got like all the original photos from sets.
Amazing.
And let me tell you, that is one. People go back and forth all the time. What is the greatest head explosion? It's usually between Scanners, Maniac, and I'm sure there's a couple others, but those are the two that come to mind. I feel like that is the gold and silver medal head explosions, and people argue day in and day out about which one was the best, which one is. I think Scanners might be a technically better head explosion, but I love the Maniac one so much because it feels as dangerous as it was.
Well, yeah, because in Scanners, it's just a head-on shot of a guy's head exploding. In Maniac, some dude is he's jumping on the car with a shotgun, and how they put that together was very impressive. I think technically Maniac is better.
I don't know if I ever told this story on air.
Oh, okay.
But see, this is an Austin Proctor exclusive.
Do tell.
So back after film school, I was making a movie called Love You Still. It's a little romantic heartbreak film that I made, which if I've never shown you, I should. It's probably the strongest directing I've ever done. And Milwaukee Film was fronting the bill on it. It was a whole big production. And then during the summer, I was working I started off as a PA, and I failed upwards, and I ended up being a assistant to the production designer.
Oh.
So if you watch, there's a movie called The Surface. It's got Sean Astin and who else was in that? Oh, Christopher Mulkey. Had Sean Astin and Christopher Mulkey. It was shot in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. You can see my handwriting in that movie.
No shit.
And then some of the props that I helped make.
Okay.
But
all right.
I tell this story because we were shooting on the lake. And occasionally I would have to, dip out to go edit my film because it was Milwaukee Film was fronting the bill to actually have an editor work on it. God, why was I telling this story? I just got lost in the sauce this morning.
talking about practical effects. We were talking about Maniac and scanners, head explosions, editing stuff together.
Thank you. So I got chummy with the makeup artists that movie,
Okay.
because why wouldn't you? And I got chummy with them, and I would hang out with them during lunch, and because they also liked horror movies, and I was trying to make a horror movie at the time, and I was like, hey, what's the over-under on, like, making a fake head? Like, how much would that cost if I wanted to do a head explosion? And keep in mind, this was like 2013, 2014, so this is not take into account inflation. And she goes, I don't know. It's like with the cost of, she's like time and labor and all the gel, all the gel that would go into making. She's like, I think I could make you a head for like $300. I'm like, that feels very reasonable.
That does feel pretty fucking reasonable.
And like maybe she was cutting me a deal or what, I don't know. But I was like, man, $300 for a fake head. That feels like some black market shit. When I say it out loud, I'll get you a head for $300.
Oh man, yeah. I $300 does seem pretty easy, or pretty cheap at least, because I mean, just thinking about how much would go into that. And you're right. The labor, I think, is probably the most work. The silicone and all that stuff can't cost that much, but I don't know shit about any of that. I'm just kind of assuming at this point. But the man hours going into making it look realistic probably take quite some time. I'd love to talk to Tom Savini some point. That would be amazing. There's so many questions I have for him. I don't even know where to begin, but
absolutely.
Definitely, yeah, we are definitely on the practical effects. We have a bunch of hand puppet dust bunnies, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's supposed to be like ridiculous to the person watching the movie, but our main star is taking this seriously. Like, this is a real situation.
That is I think that is the key to a good horror comedy. Is it needs to feel real to the people involved. Like, Gremlins. I know one of your influences. Oh
yeah.
That movie is dead serious to everyone involved, except for the Gremlins. Like, the movie still treats them with like respect and that there's some fear behind them. But the performance that everyone else is giving is legitimate.
Yeah,
and
it's genuine, legitimate, serious.
Yeah, and I love that. I think that's the way to do it.
Same thing with Killer Clowns. They're everyone in that movie's taking it. They're like, there's killer. I mean, except maybe the cop, but everyone else that's involved is taking it so seriously. And they're like, oh my god, there's killer clowns from outer space. We got to go stop this.
I would
this.
argue
And then
that
you see
that
the clowns.
cop, if we're talking about the same cop, the sheriff, I feel like he's taking it significantly more serious than everyone else.
Yeah, that's fair. He just doesn't believe everybody at first, and then he sees it, and he's like, "Oh shit,
I think
okay."
the actor he's performing it dead serious.
Yes. Yeah, so that's kind of the goal for Dust Bunnies here.
So, when I know it's like this is open-ended question as someone who's made stuff. Like, when do you think we can expect to see Dust Bunnies?
So filming this weekend, March 14th and 15th, and then going to start editing basically right away. The plan is to submit it to a festival that they run in February, but I mean, ideally it should be done I think it should be done by summertime, July-ish, maybe August. Yeah, summertime.
Dude. And like I'm not to toot my own horn, but I'm a pretty good editor myself. So if you ever need help with anything, you need eyes on things. Hell, I've even just been giving you ideas for lighting shit. Like, I'm always here for you, my dude.
Oh, that's why you're credited as producer. You've gone over the script. You're giving me helpful tips on lighting. I'm going to send you some rough drafts. You can give me pointers. That is exactly why you are credited as producer.
Did my bounce idea work?
The bounce
when
idea.
I told you to get some big white boards and bounce the light off of them?
We still have to do that. We're getting that this week,
okay.
And then we're going to be doing some testing. I got to go get some big black drapes to block and kind of shape light, and then we're going to go get a big white one to bounce light off of and see if that works. But I don't see why it wouldn't.
I think you're going to like how it works.
I think so too. It should make the light less harsh with no reflections and give us a bigger spread over the whole kitchen. So we are going to be doing that this coming week, and messing. That's gonna be the biggest thing we're messing around with, because I'm confident in every other area until I tried to light, and I was like, I understand the concept of the 3-point lighting. I get it. This is not as easy. Not that I thought that it would be easy, but I was like, this is so much more difficult.
It's hard. It's hard to shape light, and here's the thing: 3-point lighting is great, but then it's also like sometimes it's a lot of, okay, here's what traditionally works, but what works for the scene? Because like sometimes I'm sure you'll watch movies and it's like there's no way they're doing 3-point lighting on this thing, and but here's what I always say, and this is a movie that I absolutely love. Clerk's not lit that well, but it's a movie that everyone still watches every year.
What is it?
Clerks.
Clerks. Yes.
Clerks does not look that good of a movie. Kevin Smith is the first to admit it. Dave Klein, who shot that movie, he'd later go on to like shoot True Blood and stuff, and he would go on to become a very competent cinematographer. But he was just starting at that time, and people still watch that movie every single year and can quote it like constantly. So ultimately, the goal was to get something shot.
Yeah, as long as it. And I was told by our main actor, he's in a lot of short film festivals and stuff like that around the Orlando area. And he was like, as long as your movie, it's sound. He's like, sound honestly is the most important thing, because I've seen so many accepted that don't look great.
Yes.
I've seen so many accepted that aren't really filmed that great. But as long as your sound mix is good, he's like, that really ups the chances. And I was like, that's probably going to be the best thing about the movie outside of the ridiculousness of it. So I think we're going to be pretty set. And then obviously we want to submit it to, if it does well at the one down here, then we'll, we had talks about coming up to Milwaukee to see you and submitting it to a couple there, which I would love to do.
I will grease as many wheels as I have to.
Yes. So,
and when I mean that, I'm not talking about bribing anyone. I just want to throw that out there.
Just mentioning of, hey, I have a friend who wants to submit something. Would you care to take a look at it?
Yeah, I'll do what I can do. So real quick before we move on to Whiplash, I wanted to ask, have you heard, since we're both physical media people, have you heard about the Warner Brothers issue going on?
The disc rot?
Yeah.
Yeah, they say they aged like milk, apparently.
Yeah, and like it pisses me off for a couple reasons. One, like I've been so admittedly high and mighty about physical media that I hate when shit like this happens. Not that it happens often. There have not been that many cases of disc rot that have come up. This is probably the most widespread instance of consistent disc rot. Like it can happen, an imperfect disc or something, sure, but like this is the first time, to my knowledge, it has come up where it has been a consistent thing, and I hate it. Not partially because it's happening, but then the people who are like so high and mighty about how physical media sucks and streaming's the best, this just gives them fucking more ammo.
Yeah, because one, it's a specific distributor, and two, it's like 2006 to 2007 or something.
Yeah,
so it's a very specific
time period. Unfortunately, a time period when they were releasing bucket loads of shit.
Yeah, and it's not even. I don't know. Were Blu-rays around in 2006?
No, it's only DVD.
Well, no, I'm just saying, were Blu-rays around in that time frame, or was that
they might
have later?
I think they might have been kicking around a little bit.
Okay,
there.
But it's just DVDs anyway. So you've got DVDs from 2006 to 2007 from Warner Brothers. I mean, that narrows it down.
And then from Warner Brothers that were specifically pressed at a plant in Philadelphia. Like, there's a list of them. And like, don't get me wrong, out of everything I have, which is just like a little over 3,000 movies, and that's DVDs, Blu-rays, 4K, VHS, the whole kit and caboodle. Only 3 titles have been affected.
Yeah, that's like 0.01%.
So I have a copy of Blade Runner, like the 4-disc DVD set that has all of the stuff, and it technically plays. I actually don't even know if this is disc rot. It will play fine in my all-region player, no problems. It has trouble in my Panasonic. I think my disc players think it's a Region B or Region 2 disc because it plays fine in my Region free player. It's my Stanley Kubrick collection. which I have most of those movies on Blu-ray. I have it mostly for Eyes Wide Shut, because the Eyes Wide Shut releases. So, fun fact for you about Stanley Kubrick: the man was a fucking madman and thought about things in a way that no one else did. He intentionally shot that movie overexposed and lowered it down in post to give it a very specific grain structure. And a lot of releases. Wait, no, it was the other way around. Sorry, he actually shot it a little darker and then raised it up so that way it'd have thicker grain to it. And so many releases have tried to scrub away some of that grain, and the DVD copy doesn't. So like I think I digitized that copy of it, so I have it.
I love it.
And then this is the one that bums me out the most because it's a terrible movie, but I've wanted to rewatch it. I found a DVD copy of Return to Sleepaway Camp at Big Lots.
Okay.
And it doesn't play. Granted, I've not tried it in any other players, but still. So it's like 3 copies out of 3,000 movies is a pretty decent batting average.
I'm looking at mine in my app right now, and the only one I have on DVD from that time frame is 300, and that's a 1 out of my 1,700 movies. It would possibly be affected.
And there is it's not absolutely perfect because it's fan made, but there is a list going around online that fans have been making, that have all of the films mentioned, like it has them all listed.
Oh wow!
I have it saved in my drive, on my Google Drive. But like a lot of the ones that have been affected were like the 4 film favorites. Like I think they had like it's like the Warner Brothers 4 film favorites, and it was like a white background and had like an image from all 4 different movies. A lot of those were hits. Some like old TV shows. So it's like there is some stuff on here, and then like it's annoying because I look at the list and be like, oh, this is probably something I would have bought. So you just have to be a little bit more careful. But the reason I want to mention this is just because I feel like there's so much doom and gloom around this, where people are like, all discs will rot. And yes, discs do have a chance to do that. But here's the thing: I don't feel like this is going to become as widespread of an issue as people are making it out to be.
No, I agree. Because the shelf life on, at least from what I was reading, is the shelf life of movies or Blu-rays or whatever is at least 30 to 50 years or something like that. I don't know how true that is, but it's an article I was reading. Like these should last for so much longer than what people are saying they will. Even if the disc rot is a possibility, they should last for quite some time as long as you take care of them.
Yeah, and you can cut this little section out because. But one thing I would mention, that Austin Powers 3 DVD you're selling is on the list, just in case you want to test it before you try to sell it.
Oh shit! Okay.
And only reason I know that is because I remember when I had that DVD. And I remember I was so stoked when Infinifilm was trying to become a thing, because it's like you could watch it with like pop-ups and stuff. And the only reason I noticed that is because it specifically says Austin Powers and Goldmember in parentheses Infinifilm series. I'm like, oh shit, the Infinifilms are going away.
Son of a bitch.
So
they were already so small to begin with, and now they're shrinking even more.
Yep. But anyways, I don't know if this was even a worthwhile topic. I don't know if it's going to stay in the episode, because you'll listen to it later on and tell me if it's any good. But I wanted to at least bring it up because it is. Here's the thing, because like I've known about this disc rot thing for at least a year and a half, and now it's for some reason it just blew up, and it's like it sucks because. At current count, there are 215 single movies and then about 138 collections and TV shows. So that is almost 400 titles that have been affected. And that sucks. But at the same time, in the grand scheme of things, that's a pretty small margin.
I completely agree. And I will always defend that physical media is alive and well, because I had a huge haul recently of just
Oh yeah, I saw.
just movies. Yeah, just, Arrows and all these other movies and what's been put out. I think physical media is a more alive than people want to give it credit for. I mean, especially Film Masters. I got, some movies from them. Movies I'd never fucking heard of. Movies that look so good because they restored them to a very, very good quality. So I think we're in a great spot for it.
Yeah,
To be
I
completely
have
honest.
honestly been saying, I think I've said this to you before. I think we are in a new golden age. Like,
Oh, yeah.
yes, if there's in a lot of cases we aren't. I'm trying to think of the best way to word this. There was a period of time, especially probably around this 2006 to 2008 period, and then the very like near the end of DVDs, and then into the early part of Blu-ray, like pure volume of stuff being put out was huge. Don't get me wrong. Like the volume of stuff being put out then was probably higher than it is now. However, there's a lot of stuff coming out. I used to frequent the blue-ray.com like daily deals, and I'd see so much shit and be like, I didn't even know this stuff was out. I didn't know this stuff existed. And like I said, there are companies like Arrow Video and Scream Factory that are doing really interesting things. And then there are places like Severin, Film Masters, Vinegar Syndrome that are doing releases for things that no one ever expected to come out. Bloodbeat should not exist on a 4K or on a a high definition Blu-ray when it was barely even on VHS. So
no, I agree. Yeah, I totally agree. I just saw Dawn of the Discs do a post about Synapse, and they're doing Fright Night 2, Prom Night 2 through 4, 976 Evil 2 on Blu-ray and 4K for the first time. Like, we're getting all this stuff that has only been on DVD or VHS, and these companies, especially like Synapse, Severin, all the cult ones, and it's exciting, man.
I have to say, Synapse is one of my favorite companies. They don't put out as much stuff as everyone else, but man, they put a lot of work into what they do put out.
And it's always those offbeat movies or movies that just haven't had a release in so long. I love Synapse.
So, like, I'm obviously an audio nerd. When they released their Prom Night release, 'cause remember that was a big deal when Prom Night was coming to Blu-ray, because that was it was a movie that didn't look good for the long. And that's even another thing too. Like, we have so many good-looking films. Things have looked so fucking good. But when Prom Night came out, I was so stoked because Prom Night is unapologetically one of my favorite slasher films of all time.
Oh, okay.
I love Prom Night, and I was looking over the specs, and I was actually talking to one of the founders of Synapse because he's always at the conventions at the tables. I was like, "You're just hanging out here. That's cool." So this is deep audio nerd stuff. I want to pull up my notes real quick just so I can make sure I'm quoting it exactly. Hold on. So, most Blu-rays that you buy, if you were to buy like a Blu-ray right now, let's just pull up an example. Let's say you went to go buy Howl's Moving Castle. Let's say that. It's going to have an audio track on there, usually DTS HD master, maybe a Dolby Digital, probably 5.1 or stereo. It's going to be mixed at a 48 kilohertz 24-bit audio. Very good sounding quality audio. Most places mix for 48 kilohertz.
Okay.
For whatever the fucking reason, because the guys over at Synapse are madmen, they did high fidelity audio for Prom Night. They mixed it 96 kilohertz. And I think I even said out loud, I was like, "Holy shit, 96 kilohertz!" And they're like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Why?" Like, he's like, "I'm not complaining. Don't get me wrong, but why so high?" And he goes, "Because we had the original masters, and nothing was stopping us."
I love that can-do attitude. That's
because
what we need.
Nothing is stopping us. So
beautiful.
I will be probably buying all of those.
Yeah, same.
All right.
Yeah.
So Austin, you want to talk about some drumming?
I'm so ready. I'm jazzed, as I said to you last night. Pun intended.
That was perfect. So, if you haven't read the description, and if there's someone out there who just goes into each episode blind and doesn't look at what I'm actually talking about and just wants to listen because they like the show, reach out to me. I'm going to send you something. But today, on today's episode of the podcast, me and Austin are talking about a movie that's been on my shame list since, 2014. And it's been a movie that everyone has told me that I should watch and I should love and I will love. And honestly, I've been wanting to see it. It's one of those movies I kept putting off for whatever reason. But I needed an episode. Austin decided to step in and hang out with me for a little bit. And we decided that the best movie to watch would be Damien Chazelle's Whiplash. So, Andrew Neiman is a jazz drummer at the prestigious Schaefer Conservatory in New York City. He is hoping to be one of the greatest of all times. He is willing to work his ass off to become a drummer on the level of the greats of jazz drumming. He doesn't care what he has to do to get there. That is his only goal. He's willing to alienate friends, families, significant others, and just do what he has to do to focus on this goal. Well, he met his match in a aggressive teacher by the name of Terrence Fisher. He is the conductor of the Schaefer Conservatory Studio Band, and his level of excellence is far and beyond anyone else's, and he will push you to be the best that you can be or not be. And from here, Andrew Neiman learns a lot about himself and a lot about jazz drumming as he tries his hardest to please the most sadistic jazz teacher in all of New York City. So, this movie was written by filmmaker Damien Chazelle. When Damien Chazelle came onto the scene, he had made one feature film, Guy and Madeline on a Park Bench. It was a little musical shot on 16 millimeter that he did with his friends and all unprofessional actors. If you watch the film, you can see a lot of what he would later go on to do in La La Land.
Wow.
But before he came onto the scene with Whiplash, he had written The Last Exorcism Part 2, and a movie that I think is very underrated with Elijah Wood and John Cusack, Grand Piano. It is a thriller about a piano player who is performing in a large show, and there's a sniper on him with a gun on him the entire time. Says he plays one wrong note, he will kill him in front of the audience.
Oh my!
It is a very Damien Chazelle thriller. But around that time, he wrote this movie Whiplash that he felt very passionate about, and in comes Jason Blum, and in his company Blumhouse, as well as Jason Reitman, the filmmaker behind Juno, who saw something in the script. He took one scene from it, made a proof of concept, and used that to get the film made. And when he did, and after he got the film made, it went on to top 57 different best of lists. On top of that, it got a lot of love from the critics. It was nominated and won a bunch of awards. It was the top audience and grand jury award in the U.S. dramatic competition, the 2014 Sundance Film Festival. It won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. Sorry, it was planned to compete for that, but at the 87th Academy Awards, J.K. Simmons received the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. Tom Cross won the award for Best Film Editing. It also won for Best Sound Mixing, and I believe it was nominated for a couple others. So the movie took on a pretty big... What's the word I'm looking for? It took on a pretty big... it was a pretty big deal back in 2014. Yeah. For those of you listening, I don't have an intro written. I'm doing this off the cuff. But Whiplash would then go on to kickstart Damien Chazelle's career, and while he did have one other film that he wrote and didn't direct after Whiplash, 2016's 10 Cloverfield Lane, he wrote that film. He would then go on to make La La Land in the same year of 10 Cloverfield Lane, First Man, and Babylon, along with a short film in 2020 called The Stunt Double. Whiplash stars Miles Teller, J.K. Simmons, Paul Reiser, Melissa Benoist, Austin Stallmill, and Chris Mulkey as Andrew's uncle Frank Neiman. The film is written by Damien Chazelle. It's produced by Jason Blum. Was editing by Tom Cross, music by Justin Hurwitz, from 2014, directed by Damien Chazelle. This is Whiplash.
This place is nice.
I really like the music that they play. Bob Ellis on the drums. I'm part of Schaefer's Top Jazz Orchestra. It's the best music school in the country.
The key is to just relax. Don't worry about the numbers. Don't worry about what the other guys are thinking. You're here for a reason. Have fun. 5, 6, and.
I want to be great.
And you're not.
We got Buddy Rich here. Little trouble there. You're rushing. Here we go. 5, 6, and. Were you rushing or were you dragging?
I don't know.
If you deliberately sabotage my band, I will gut you like a pig.
Oh, my dear God. Are you one of those single-tier people?
You are a worthless pansy ass who is now weeping and slobbering all over my drum set like a 9-year-old girl.
So how's it going with the studio band?
Good. Yeah, I think he likes me more now.
I push people beyond what's expected of them. I believe that is an absolute necessity.
I want to be one of the greats. And because I'm doing that, it's going to take up more of my time. And this is why I don't think that we should be together.
I would never let him put my son through hell. Why would you let him get away with what he did to you?
There are no 2 words in the English language more harmful than good job.
It's so good. Not that I thought it was going to be bad going into it. I just was not expecting the level of film that I received.
Yeah, and I'm the same way because I came into Damien Chazelle late. Like obviously I saw 10 Cloverfield Lane because I'm a horror guy and everyone saw that. I feel like if you're into horror films, funny enough, I saw Grand Piano when it first came out. And I saw when Whiplash was coming out, it was like the second coming of Christ. It felt like in terms of filmmaking because he's, I believe, still the youngest filmmaker to win Best Director. I'm trying to think if that movie actually. Hold on, let me look at the full list of accolades because the list I was looking at I don't think was
For Whiplash?
Yes,
It won. I have it right here. It won Best Actor Supporting for J.K., Best Film Editing, Best Sound Mixing, and was nominated for Best Motion Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay. So 3 nominated for 5.
Okay. Maybe it was La La Land that he won Best Director. But regardless, Damien Chazelle kind of stormed onto the scene, and everyone was talking about this movie. Like, this movie has only been out for a short period of time, and it's already on Empire's list for the 100 greatest movies of the 21st century. It is making a lot of people's top 10 lists of all time, and that's impressive for a movie that's this new. Like I know, like 2014 was still like a while ago, but it also wasn't that long ago.
Right.
But I came into Damien Chazelle with La La Land.
Okay.
It was around the time, it was around that time, funny enough, that I started realizing I liked musicals more than I told myself I did. Because when I was a kid, I hated them. But as I become an adult, I've realized I need to be in the mood for them, but I really like them in the right context.
Okay.
And I was hot on La La Land. I really liked that movie. And I didn't see First Man, but I saw Babylon. And I fucking love Babylon. That's something that me and Jason Hillman will not agree on because he does not like Babylon as much as I do. But I fucking love Babylon. So it's like, okay. I feel it's like, okay, I loved La La Land. I loved Babylon. I should probably go back and see Whiplash. And I'm so fucking glad I did. So, Austin, when did you first see Whiplash?
Fairly recently. I had legitimately never heard about this movie up until 2019, maybe even 2018 when I was in a band playing shows a few years back, and
Which I don't get to hear about musician Austin very often.
I know, because it doesn't come up anymore as much because I just don't have the capacity to have a drum set and stuff like that. But I mean, I got into drumming around 8th grade in middle school, and I was in the band there, just doing snare, and I was like, this is boring as shit. Let me get a drum set. So then I started getting a drum set, played in bands here and there. I mean, so I've been drumming since 8th grade. What is that, 12 or 13? Damn. So like 20 years. I love drumming. It is a huge passion of mine. And my father-in-law actually, he turned me on to this movie. He said, you're a drummer. Have you seen Whiplash? I was like, I've never even heard of this movie. And it took me a couple years after he told me about it to watch it. But then once
That's usually how it works. Someone's like, you should see this movie. And be like, yeah, I'll do that. And then you forget.
Yeah, sure. And I forget. And then I remembered when I had Letterboxd, because that didn't happen until about 2019. And I looked it up and I was like, fuck, it has a 4.4 out of 5. I got to check this out. So I watched it.
Solid
and
rating.
Immediately was what's the word I'm looking for? Enthralled? Is that the right word?
I don't know if it's the right word, but that's a good word. And we're going to go with
captivated.
Ooh,
captivated. Let's go with that. And an instant hit with me. And I watched it again, I think the next year. Same level of enjoyment. And then watching it again this time, I actually bumped up my rating because I was like, you know what? This is a 5-star movie for me. It was at 4.5 for the first 2 watches. And then last night I was like, this is a full 5-star. And that's kind of how I found out about it. Actually, I didn't realize I'd watched it without Gabby, and she watched it last night. It was a little too stressful for her, given the situation with J.K. Simmons, because he's a little stressful. But she really enjoyed it too, and gave it a 4.5. I mean, the movie's fucking good.
I should not have watched it when I was stressed out about other things, because it did not help my anxiety levels. But the movie is just so fucking good. And it's. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot we can talk about with this, but I want to ask, did you watch the short film version I sent you?
Yeah, I watched it yesterday, and it's funny because there's a lot of beats from, that made it into the movie. There's a lot of dialogue, too, that made it into the movie. So it's really interesting because he couldn't get funding for it that he wanted to do, so he made the short film. And it went over so well at Sundance that I think that's when Jason Blum stepped in to give him money to do it, because I guess no one wanted to make the original screenplay that he had written out. So, and I didn't even know there was a short film until you showed me that. And I was like, and they had J.K. Simmons in this? Wow,
yeah,
okay.
So I think because Jason Reitman came in and helped produce that short film, that definitely helped, because J.K. Simmons had worked on Juno, and I think he might have worked with J.K. Simmons a couple other times before that, or after that. So I'm sure that helped. But it's interesting to watch because it's verbatim the same scene. It has young Neil from Scott Pilgrim in it instead of Miles Teller, but. It's verbatim the same scene. It's not shot as well, and it's in a different location. But the way that the editing cuts and the way that the dialogue plays out, and hell, most of the people in that scene are the same people from the feature film version of Whiplash. The musician that he kicks out of class, same kid. The
Elmer Fudd, yep.
Yeah, the guy who's the other drummer in that class, same guy. It's really interesting to watch because I feel like you could put both scenes side by side of each other and watch them play out, and I would not be surprised if they're nearly identical, in terms of timing and pacing. And if anything, that made me appreciate it even more. It's he had such a strong vision for this that it is identical to what he would go on to make.
The only difference really that I kind of found between it is J.K. Simmons he really stepped it up even more for the movie. He was not that he was bad in the short, but I think he had a lot more intensity and insanity in the movie.
Do you remember that scene in the movie when the red-haired guy comes in and joins the drum team? And Tanner, yeah. And I remember Tanner says, oh, don't worry about him. His bark is worse than his bite. The version of J.K. Simmons in the short film, I could see that with. His bark is worse than his bite. The J.K. Simmons in the movie is an absolute fucking psychopath.
Yeah, he's throwing chairs. He's throwing drums. Everything he says out of his mouth is the most ridiculous, heinous diss I've ever heard I wrote down some of my favorite lines that we'll get to, but he's wildly unhinged in this.
Yes.
Kind of for good reason, because he wants the best possible band, but I think it is a little intense at times.
Well,
you don't need to wing a chair at a kid.
And I feel like that's going to be definitely a part of this conversation as we go on. If was it worth it? So, but I want to ask a little bit about so you saw this movie for the first time a couple of years ago. Because of you said your stepdad mentioned it to you because you were a drummer.
Father-in-law.
Sorry, father-in-law. Father-in-law. That's not a word. Father-in-law. My mistake. I like father-in-law. I think we're gonna go with that.
We'll go with that.
So as a drummer, and I should also ask, were you into jazz? And like, how did this movie affect you the first time you saw it? How did this feel for you?
Well, it's actually funny that you mentioned that, because my first point that I wrote down is I absolutely love the music in this. I am a very low-key jazz fan. It's not something I listen to all the time, but when the mood strikes, I'll put it on, and then that's all I'll listen to for weeks at a time. It started probably in my late 20s. I really got into jazz, and I love certain styles of jazz. So that for me I liked that a lot, because especially with the backing band, it's a full orchestral jazz, which is a little different than, your traditional one trumpet, a piano, stuff like that. You've got all sorts of winds, you've got all sorts of brass, the drums. And it sounds so good. So for me, I never did jazz because it's extremely hard as a drummer to play jazz. It is not for the weak. For me, it was rock, metal, stuff like that, stuff that's a little bit more groovy and not so, because jazz for a drummer is very technical. There's a lot of odd time signatures that are not easy to do.
I feel like at one point J.K. Simmons said a time signature on this. I'm like, wait, you could play in that time signature?
Yeah, there's some funky time signatures with jazz. So for me as a drummer watching this, I'm fascinated. And of course, as a drummer too, I'm watching to see if they're actually playing it, or if there's, for the most part, a lot of it was played, and they did it in post, but they do match it up pretty well for the most part.
I was going to ask about that, because it's like there's a lot of close-ups of Miles Teller in this movie.
Yeah,
drumming his little heart out.
And I wondered too why they picked him, because before this, he really hadn't done much. He was in the Footloose remake, he was in Project X, he was in a great A24 movie called The Spectacular Now, but he's actually been playing drums since he was 15. So he's been playing for quite some time, and for this movie, he did additional lessons of like 4 hours a day, 3 days a week. So he's a legitimate drummer. And even though they might not be recording it live on set, because that's just really hard to do, about 50% of it was, or actually most of it was him playing in a studio that they would, dub over. So a lot of that is actually him playing. Sometimes there is a double. Anytime you don't see Teller's face, that's a double playing it for real. Yeah, that was really fun for me. I'm always looking at the drummer in movies when they're playing, and you can sometimes tell like that is way off, but it was really accurate and that's what makes me happy about this movie.
You'll love, unrelated, but you'll love this video I saw recently where the actor Paul Shearer, he does a web show where him and someone else just watch stupid videos online, and they found one from Saved by the Bell back when Zach from Saved by the Bell started a band.
Oh God!
And someone painstakingly dubbed over every instrument of what music they were actually playing.
Oh yeah, that's a big issue I have watching drummers on a movie, because they're like Wayne's World is a perfect example. They're playing on screen, and I'm hearing the ride cymbal, which is typically on your right like this, and he's playing the hi-hat, and I'm like, this makes me crazy. They're not drumming the correct drums, but this was very accurate. There's only like a couple scenes where I'm like,
that's how I am anytime there's a movie about making movies. I'm like looking at the gear, the equipment they're using, and like I'm a nerd about that shit. So I get it.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I knew you played some music. I didn't know you were as an accomplished musician as you are, Austin.
I wish I did it a little bit more seriously and was still in a band, but it's just at this point in my life with how much is going on and the kid, it's just wouldn't be feasible. I would have to be making money doing it or touring, and I don't want to be away from my child. So as much as I do love it, I would like to come back around to it if I get some more space and get a set or even an electric set. But yeah, I love drumming. I always have. So, and I think that's obviously, for me at least, that's why I was so immediately attached to this, because I was like, ooh, outside of, what is it, The Sound of Metal? I mean, there's not many movies that specifically focus on a drummer. I mean, you've got Drumline, sure, but that's kind of cheesy. So you've got Sound of Metal, you've got Whiplash. I'm sure there's more, but
the only other one I can think of is That Thing You Do.
That Thing You Do. Oh, okay.
It is directed by Tom Hanks.
Oh.
It is a movie about a one-hit wonder band in the 1960s who go on to have some pretty big success with their one-hit wonder and then fizzle out. And the movie is all from the perspective of its drummer, who dreams of being a jazz drummer, actually.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So,
ooh, and it's on Hulu. I'll have to watch that. Wow,
it is a good one.
3.6.
It is
okay.
So fucking quotable.
Okay. Tom Hanks too. Yeah, so I mean it's like a very small kind of subgenre, or not even subgenre, but like narrative about specifically focused around a drummer. Sure, there's movies about bands, plenty of those, but not around a drummer. So I think that's why I latched onto this one. Yeah, and then there's the performances, and then there's the incredible music. I mean, all around. This is just.
I've been sitting here trying to think, like, where do we even begin with talking about this? Because there's so much. So I, not to show my hand too early, but I rated this movie very high for my first time watching it. And there's so many different places we could go. We could talk about the dynamic between Neiman and Terrence Fletcher. We can talk about the dynamic between Neiman and his father, the other relationships in his life. But I guess where I want to start is one thing this movie does that is one of my favorite things you can do in a movie. It doesn't bog down the story with too much unnecessary plot. This movie just fucking begins. It does.
Yeah.
It doesn't give you like, I'm poking fun at Goodfellas right now, but I absolutely love Goodfellas. So like, don't take it personally, anyone listening. It doesn't start with the Goodfellas narration. Ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be a drummer. It doesn't start with anything like that. It just starts with Miles Teller fucking drumming in a studio. Fletcher shows up, asks him to play some double time swing. And he starts playing it, and camera cuts, and fucking Fletcher's just gone. Comes back, gets his coat, and like there's a little more to it, but like I love this beginning. Giselle has said he's always been obsessed with the idea of starting a movie with a short film, almost like just a little like one shot little scene that is going to set everything up, and then that's pretty much it. Like we discover who these characters are in real time. As the movie goes on, there's not too much unnecessary exposition, and it's a paper thin plot, but that's all this movie really needs, because this movie is about interplay between characters, and is more about theme than story.
Yeah, you're right. Because I mean, at the end of the day, it is about Andrew Neiman wanting to become the best drummer, and that is really all it's about. Everything else that's involved in this movie is his obstacles that he has to overcome, dealing with kind of a shitty family. His mom left and then she died, so he's only got his dad. He's got a very rambunctious uncle and football players, and they think the football players are the salt of the earth, and they don't take, which is a pretty common thing, to not take musicians or artists seriously.
That felt so Midwestern. I felt like I was at a family function trying to tell people, be like, so what are you doing over there, Mikey? They don't call me Mikey. And I was like, well, I'm studying film. They're like, that's great. This guy's playing football. It just felt so Midwestern.
And I love how, and especially in that scene, I really love that scene, because Neiman is basically giving all of them shit. Like, yeah, you're not even it's not even second division. It's third division. You think you're going to be invited to the NFL? I bet you won't hear those words. And I was like, zinger, holy shit. So, and then he eventually just gets up and walks away because, yeah, I wouldn't want to deal with that situation anyway. Even his dad in that scene was kind of being a prick to him.
Yeah.
And
like his dad feels like he
really?
supports him because he supports his son, but not necessarily supports the path he wants to take.
And he's at one of the most prestigious schools for music. It's not like he's just at some bumfuck school in the middle of nowhere. Like Schaefer is the school. You want to get into there is a feat in itself.
Yeah, and for me, I feel like one thing I think this movie works so well in this movie is there's a lot of subtlety of things that aren't said. Even just something as simple as the opening scene when Terrence Fletcher comes in and sees Neiman at the drums, and he asks him his name. He introduces himself as Andrew Nyman, but Fletcher, being the controlling douche he is, then just refers to him as Neiman for the rest of the movie. And just
does he really?
Yes, he introduces himself as Andrew Nyman, and Fletcher then just chooses to call him Neiman for the rest of the film. And that is such a small little douchey power play thing.
Oh yeah,
and like
interesting.
And because I'm so used to hearing him being called Neiman, I keep calling him that. But yeah, he introduced himself. Go back and just watch the opening scene. He introduced himself as Andrew Nyman.
Oh my God. Okay, yeah. So if you only hear that one time, and then everyone else is calling him that. Oh,
and then if you watch that scene when he first introduces Neiman to the fucking group, and he calls him Andrew Neiman. Teller has this very slight change of his face where he almost feels like he wants to say something, but he's too afraid to. It's very interesting. But then, continue what you're going to say.
No, I was going to say, and actually that makes sense because I kind of saw him make that face and I wasn't sure why. Yep. And if we talk about the scene that's directly before that, when he's in the hall with, Fletcher's in the hall with Andrew, and Fletcher has this kind of heart-to-heart moment, although he's in a very aggressive stance because he has his hand against the wall and he's very intimidating, but he's like, just have fun. Asks him about his family, and then he comes in there and just emotionally batters him in front of everyone to the point where he starts to cry because he's like, I thought we were going to be cool and you're being a raging dick. So it was this crazy power play of getting inside his head to see how far he could push this kid. Because I believe he saw talent right away, and that's why he just left. He was like, I know this kid has what it takes, but will he take my unrelenting, unabashed, just rage and like emotional distress I'm going to put you through to be the best drummer? Like, I think that's,
Andrew was the only one who was realistic. Like, he was shitty to everyone, but Andrew was targeted. I feel to the point where, like, I feel like everyone in that band is good, but he's not going to Gordon Ramsay those people just because he doesn't need to.
Yeah, he saw
something in him. Yeah. And going back to that scene where they have that little heart-to-heart, when that was happening, I'm like, I don't trust this.
No.
When Andrew talks about his father, played wonderfully by Paul Reiser. I fucking love Paul Reiser. When they were talking, and, so this will I'll get to where I'm going with this in a second. But Paul Reiser, or not Paul Reiser, sorry. Andrew says, "Oh, my father's an author," and then what does Fletcher say? "Oh, what has he written?" And he goes, "He's more of a teacher." And that stuck out to me every time it was said because I feel like, once again, how this movie says things without saying them. It doesn't need exposition necessarily. To me, I feel like that explains the dynamic between Andrew and his father. I feel like Andrew's father probably in his youth was like Andrew, where he's like, I'm going to be a big-time author. I'm going to do this great thing. I'm going to go to this, we probably also went to a prestigious school for writing or for English or something, and he's going to probably write the next great American novel or whatever, and now he's a teacher. And he spends his nights, watching movies with his son or whatever, and probably never got that push that he needed. So I've wondered, since I watched this movie, is Paul Reiser just worried that his son is going to go down the same path as him, where it's like he has these dreams of being the biggest jazz drummer of all time, and that he's just going to end up teaching for high schoolers or something like. And I wonder if that is part of that dynamic, because I'm thinking, why would a guy who is, an author slash teacher be so against his son going to the arts? And the only thing I can think of is because he got chewed up and spit out, and he didn't want the same thing to happen to his son.
That's actually a very good point, and that kind of explains the kind of contention that they have between each other. Well, I guess it's really his dad against,
and like he
Andrew.
loves his dad loves him,
Yeah.
but there's a sense of like, whoa, I don't know what that means, but
Yeah, I think there's that kind of unspoken fear he has where what you said, to your point, where he doesn't want the same thing that happened to him to happen to his son, because obviously his dad isn't that happy. He's a normal, average guy that's just kind of going through the motions, I feel. And yeah, he probably didn't get that break he wanted to. And if that doesn't happen to his son, I think that will just ultimately crush his dad, because he can see a lot of himself in Andrew, and he doesn't want to see what happened to him happen to his son. That is a very astute observation, honestly.
yeah, and
I didn't pick up on that.
I said I love movies like this that don't need, like, everything I need to enjoy the film is there on screen. But then if you take a little bit of extra time with things that aren't being said and you really dig into things, you can learn a lot about it. And it's even just, I've loved watching the progression, Andrew's progression in this. He started off as a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, idealistic drummer who probably thought more highly of himself than he should have. Not to say, to get in that school, you have to be a good musician. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But, I feel like him getting put onto the studio band at 19 years old definitely went to his head. And even in just a couple scenes, to see the way that he first interacts with Nicole, the girl that Andrew asks out on a date, the boldness for a couple scenes later for him to be like, yeah, we have to break up because of X, Y, and Z, because you're gonna end up keeping me dragging me down, and like, whoa, you just think so fucking highly of yourself.
Yeah,
like, I get what he was saying, but he was saying it in the meanest way possible, and made it sound like she was gonna keep him back, as opposed to him being too focused on his goals to have time for dating.
Yeah, he kind of flipped it around on her.
Yeah,
and that's,
he did.
Yeah, my wife was watching, and she was like, God damn. Like, we both understand what you're saying, but I feel that was a little harsh. It's like, well, you're not going to have time for me, and I'm going to hold you back. You're going to be something great, and I'm not going to be nothing. And he's like, yeah, basically, like, wow, dude, holy cow. Maybe reel it in just a skosh, because you are in the band now, but as he should have noticed before, people are replaceable. I mean, he replaced the core drummer after that whole Notebook incident, and I have a question for you, because
I want to talk about the Notebook.
They don't ever explicitly explain what happened, because that notebook got lost, and I have a feeling it was absolutely Fletcher who pulled that notebook.
Definitely,
because,
that's my thought.
Because I can't remember his name, but the core drummer told told Fletcher, he said, I can't, I need the music. I can't do this. I have a problem with this. And J.K. Simmons says something hilarious, but then Miles Teller is like, I can do it. I know it from memory. And I think that was Fletcher's way of, I know this kid has talent, and I know he doesn't really read the music very well, but I'm going to take this folder and see if he can step in and pull it off. And he steps in and fucking nails it.
Yeah,
and I think, and then replaces the core drummer.
It is subtle mental games that he's playing with people, because he knows his core drummer is talented.
Right.
He can do a lot, and he can, if anything, he's probably one of those things. He probably has the music memorized better than he thinks he does, but he needs that crutch of having it in front of him. I get that because like I work in a call center and I have greetings I need to say, and I probably know those greetings by heart, but I need them in front of me just as in case I ever get lost in the sauce. I get that. But yeah, it was definitely a like okay, I don't this guy will never be great because he is unwilling to do it to go outside of his comfort zone because he didn't even try. He's like, I can't do it. I will not do this. And Andrew, even if Andrew would have fucked up, and maybe he did, they never drew attention to it if he did. He's like, fuck it, I will jump in and just do this.
And that shows the level of dedication that I know Fletcher is looking for to be the greatest, to go above and beyond your comfort zone to do the best you can, given the current situation that you're in.
Mm-hmm. And then as the movie progresses, Andrew kind of has his fucking supervillain moment. Like, if this was like a prequel film for like a Batman villain, like the drummer or something like that, like I would believe it because he kind of gets kind of supervillainy there in a little bit when he's just drumming so aggressively his hands are bleeding. Like, okay, I don't think there's anything I've wanted that bad that I'm willing to put myself through that. I just know that about myself. So that's why I wouldn't survive on Fletcher's team. I know that about myself. But so he's putting himself through all this. His father is showing legitimate concern for him. But then we have the show, the car accident show. Well, actually before that, Fletcher gets a call from someone. He gets some news. We're not privy to what the news is at that moment, but we find out Fletcher tells us that one of his former students died in a car accident. And this is the most gentle Fletcher has ever been in this movie, where he plays some music and just tells a story about how this kid was in the same shoes as all of them and was not a very good musician at first, but he pushed him and he went on to become one of the greats or something like that. I'm paraphrasing him a little bit. What we find out later on is that Fletcher lied to us. That kid did die, but he took his own life because of the stress that he was under from probably, going from Fletcher's class to becoming a professional. It was just too much for him, and he took his own life. And it's interesting, that scene with Fletcher when he sits down with the class and spins this yarn, which I'm sure everything about all the details about the kid and his journey were true, but he left out one important thing, because I'm sure there are times where Fletcher is he's very aware of the mental turmoil he puts people through, and him being such a psychopath, and I can confidently use those words, he wanted to take the suicide of a student and spin it to inspire. And that's so fucked.
It is, but I have this written down too. I do think that this scene is incredibly important because even though he did make up one crucial aspect of this, I do think that this is one of the most important scenes in the movie, at least because I think he's genuinely upset. I think he
is too.
So, and I think this is, like I said, one of the most pivotal scenes in the movie because he kind of cries in front of Andrew and then Andrew leaves. But when he comes in the next day and he is open and crying in front of the entire class, it gives him a side that we don't see very often, and I think this is pretty much the only side the time we see it, but it gives him because he would be entirely unredeemable without this here, but the fact that he does have those emotions and he is willing to cry in front of his students kind of makes him, all right, this guy is a human. He does have feelings. He's not a complete raging asshole. Even though he did spin the story, he does have these emotions. So it kind of makes you connect with him. But then obviously when you find out it was a suicide, you're like, okay, well, kind of not the best way to tell the class, but how do you tell the class that he committed suicide probably because of something that I did? So
Yeah,
it's a good scene, but it's also kind of a twisted scene at the same time.
Yeah, because and once again, that's the beauty of a movie like this. We don't know what's going on in Fletcher's head. We have to use inference, and I truly do believe that while he's a fucking psychopath, and I'm going to keep saying those words, he's a fucking psychopath. I don't think there's ever a world in which he wants someone to kill themselves. He doesn't want someone to take their own life. He doesn't want someone to he doesn't want that. He doesn't want, and I think because he probably in his heart of hearts believed that, well, I'm an asshole. I'm pushing these people hard, but nothing I'm doing is destructive.
Right.
And then he is faced with, oh no, my actions caused this.
Yeah, and I think that's also after Fletcher does get dismissed from Schaefer and Andrew sees him in that jazz club. There's another,
love that scene.
Yeah, it's a really good emotionally charged pivotal scene because the Charlie Parker story is such a key moment where it explains why Fletcher pushes people so much. There's that one kid he was talking about, Jojo or something like that, the bird, where he got that symbol thrown at his head, and he's like, if
Charlie
that
Parker,
didn't happen,
Charlie Parker had that nickname.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there we go. So, yeah, if he didn't have that symbol thrown at his head and just said, yeah, you did a good job, he would have thought he did a good job and continued. But the fact that that happened, it pushed him to the point of going the distance. And then Andrew was like, well, can't people be pushed too much? And he said, people that are willing to do the work and be the best will never be discouraged. They will do whatever it takes. So that's why he pushes people so hard, specific people, not everybody. He pushes those specific people he sees greatness in because he wants them to succeed. And it's a fucked up scenario because you are pushing these people to almost to past a certain extent that you should. But without that push in certain situations, that person may have never become the great person that they did. So it's a very...
But then we have the whole discussion of what are the ethics and the morals behind that? Should people be pushed to that level just because you can? Should you? And like the examples he gives, yeah, there are examples of people who have who needed that push to get there, but I'm sure there's also other people who got there without having someone push them to that level. And then yeah, someone threw a symbol at I just said his name. Why can't I think of it?
Charlie Parker.
Charlie Parker. Someone threw a symbol at Charlie Parker's head. But was he berated constantly every single day? Belittled? Was he, called various slurs? Like Andrew was asking, what is the level? So as the movie progresses, we get the scene where Andrew is trying so hard to get to this fucking show after they had been they didn't start practice the night before until 3 a.m. because he wouldn't let them start until one of the drummers could play the time signature he wanted to. And then we saw that they started practice at 3 a.m. and then it shows them all leaving, and he goes he mentions that they having to leave at 5 a.m. to get to the venue on time. So it's like, what time is it currently? I'm sure pretty much Andrew probably has to go straight to getting on a bus. Bus breaks down, has to get rent a car. He's already behind, ends up getting into a car accident, fucking hobbles his way to the show covered in blood, can barely hold his drumsticks, and ends up passing out. Which then leads to the whole downfall of Fletcher because a lawyer gets involved and is like, can't let him keep doing this. Andrew has that moment of defeat where he's like, just tell me what to say.
Mm-hmm.
And, he packs up everything. And I've never had, I'm thankful I'm a person who has multiple hobbies. Where like, but it's like when he takes down everything related to music, and not even just music, just drumming from his apartment. It's like he has nothing at all.
He killed his relationship with that girl, which he tries to kind of rekindle at some point.
I'm glad it didn't work. It would be a little schmaltzy if it worked out for him.
So yeah, he ends that, that he doesn't have that. He's got his dad, who again has this weird pity on him, believes in him to a certain extent. He's got no mom. His family is kind of chaotic. So yeah, he's just got basically nothing. And I don't think he necessarily gave up. I think he was just so distraught by the whole situation. I mean, getting in a car accident, losing that position at Schaefer, having that guy fired, basically. I think he just had to I think drumming for him became this just somber thing that he just couldn't bring himself to do anymore. So he put it all in the closet to try and move on. And then they have that run-in at the jazz club and it's the second that Fletcher said, "Hey, I have a jazz band. It's not working out. Would you be the drummer?"
I was like shaking my head. I was like, "No, don't do it. Don't do it."
Yeah, even Gabby was like, "I do not trust this." I was like, "Yeah, I don't either." But
and then
maybe.
All I could think was like when he finally got to the venue later on, and he saw he was like watching for his dad because he wanted to. This is kind of his Phoenix moment. He wanted to prove to his dad that he can do this. And I'm thinking, oh, man, I wouldn't have invited my dad to this. I got into a car accident because I was under such duress from this teacher who I then helped get fired. And I'm going to invite you to the jazz show where he's a conductor and ask me to be. No, I would not invite my father to that.
But on the inverse of that, I think I'm glad he did, because when he was on stage and left – and his father was there to console him, he hugged him, and then he looked at his dad, and he was like,
"That was like
no."
That was such a great performance beat by Miles Teller. He walked out, stormed off stage, and oh my God, I need to go back even before that when Fletcher comes up to him, I know it was you. And I was like,
"Oh yeah." He's like, "Do you think I'm fucking? Yeah. Do you think I'm fucking stupid?"
Yeah, and that was like a fucking jump scare. And like he is such a madman that he's willing to what's the word I'm looking for? Tank his entire show and make everyone on that stage look bad to get back at Andrew. And then because there was no replacement drummer that came on stage, so he was willing to let their drummer leave stage. And just do the rest of the show without percussion.
Petty.
Like, that is a level of petty.
It's a level of petty, but I think I think it's this weird push for him. He doesn't have the right music. He's doing a completely different song. They start up. He tries to do something, but he's failing. And he comes over to him and he's like,
he tries to improv it a little bit. But
doesn't work. That guy's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "See, maybe you don't have it." And then he gets off with his tail between his legs, because if you paid attention to the dialogue right before that, he's like, "The people in this room can make or break you."
Yep.
He's like, they will always remember someone who performed badly. So he goes out, hugs his dad, comes back in. He's like, "You know what? No," comes back in, and then just goes into the drums. He goes into the drums.
That was the Ash Ketchum turn my hat around moment in Pokemon.
Yes, yeah, just turning my hat around. And he's like, looks at the bass. He's like, "I'll bring you in. We're doing Caravan." And then the bass comes in. And then Fletcher's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And then he brings the rest of the band in. And then just destroys that.
Like one of the most
drum solo.
Pleasing 20-minute, ending 20 minutes to a movie ever.
And then you can see Fletcher's mood change. He's annoyed as fuck at first, and then he comes over, and then he smashes the cymbal into his face. And then when he does the drum solo, Fletcher comes over and he's nodding his head, and he's like, "Come on, build it back up."
And when he picks up the cymbal for him, that's a little moment. But I love like when Andrew's just going so nuts, he knocks over one of the cymbals. Fletcher comes and grabs it and puts it back into place, because he's like, "This kid's cooking. I need to let him fucking do his thing, and I can't let anything stop it, because he is in a zone unlike I've ever seen him before."
and he does like that 7-minute drum solo, slows it down, brings it back up, and Fletcher's like, he's like doing all these motions, like bring it up, and he's like, I'll cue you in, and then and then it ends, and you're like, oh my god. That was such an incredible end. One of the greatest endings, honestly, or maybe the most satisfying endings, I think. Because then it just ends. It ends with them smiling at each other, like, you fucking did it, kid. You did it. You know, at what cost, but you did it.
Yeah, and this movie is interesting too because it rides this very interesting line. Because Damien Chazelle has said this movie is based on his own experiences. Because his background is music. Which blows my mind, not because he's a musician, like it makes sense in all of his work. It just blows my mind that he would go on to become such a good fucking filmmaker, because he says this was the level of music that he was playing at a period of time in his life, and it's like, damn, bro, you transitioned from that to another highly stressful job. Good for you.
Yeah, and I think that level of stress really comes through in this movie because it's a very tense, stressful movie.
But the movie rides this interesting line where, because like on the surface level, I think someone can if someone were to tell me that, I watched Whiplash and I didn't like it because it was glorifying this level of abuse to get to a certain level, I can see why someone could make that reading. But I think what reason I like this movie so much is that there is all this subtlety to it, where you almost feel like Damien Chazelle he is on the fence about it. He's like, some people need this. It is objectively abusive. I don't know if I support this or not, because I do chastise the character in this movie that does that. But it does get my lead character to that point. So it's just walking this interesting line, and I like that. It doesn't necessarily have it doesn't lean in any specific way. Like I said, it's easy for us to like watch this and be like, fuck that guy. But it gets the character where he needs to go. But then you have the whole, like you said, the moral quandary of, should he have been pushed to get there? Could he have gotten there on his own? I do believe he could have, but we will never know.
Yeah, and if you notice too in the movie, he's a dick to most people. If someone's out of tune, he finds that person, and I love that scene too when he's like, "Do you think you're out of tune?" He's like, "Yes." He's like, "Get the fuck out of here!" And then he goes to the guy. He's like, "You were actually out of tune, but he didn't know." And that's actually worse. So he pushes people, but he really only is focused on Miles Teller, and I believe that he just sees that drive in him, that he really focuses in on pushing him to the 10th degree, because he doesn't act that way towards anybody else in the movie, or at least the intensity that he brings towards Teller's character. That is the only person he is that focused on being relentlessly, like, emotionally abusive to. So
yeah, and then one could argue that what got Miles Teller to that point was spite.
Right? Yeah,
spite's a hell of a drug.
Yeah, you're not kidding, man. And I think he also had hope that, hey, maybe we can make this work with the JVC thing that we're going to do. And then he was so blindsided by not having the prepared music. And you also find out, too,
one
that
might
Tanner
even say he had whiplash.
Yeah, whiplash from fucking springing his neck around like, wait, what are we playing? And he finds out too, Tanner was just incentive for him to do better. So he just wanted him.
I think we all kind of figured that.
Yeah, because he wasn't playing nearly as good as Andrew Neiman. So
no.
Like
the first time he, like, the redhead guy sat down and was like at the drums, and I was like, "You square-headed dick." It's like he just had such confidence behind him. He's like, "Fuck you, man. I don't even know you."
I don't even know you. And J.K. Simmons calls him a leprechaun. I think I'm going to call you Leprechaun from now on. Why do you look like a leprechaun? All of his disses were so great.
You said you had a list of your favorite disses?
I do have a few here. I mean, everything that Fletcher said was hilarious, but I've got like 3 standouts here. You weepy willow shit sack was good.
Oh, that's my favorite one, yeah.
Yeah, play faster than you give hand jobs. If you deliberately sabotage my band, I will fuck you like a pig. I'm not going to have my reputation in that department tarnished by a bunch of fucking limp dicks, sour note, flatter than their girlfriends, flexible tempo dipshits. And then my favorite scene in the whole movie outside of the music is when he's talking about the books going missing. And he says, if I ever see one of these laying around again, I will stop being so polite. Someone walks in and he's like, get the fuck out of my sight before I demolish you. It's like, I was so scared. I was genuinely fearful from his performance, and that doesn't. I've never really had a feeling of someone invoking a feeling of me of like I am genuinely afraid of you in this role. That rarely happens for me, but I do think this is my favorite performance from J.K. Simmons because it's so mine different.
For sure. Yeah, it's mine for sure. So I want to talk about one final thing before we start wrapping up.
Sure.
So I've been thinking about this as we watched, as I watched this movie, and so Fletcher has his theories about what it takes to become one of the greatest of all time.
Okay.
Do you think part of the reason that Fletcher pushes people is because he never got to that point? He's clearly a known name enough that they could put his name on a jazz club standee and people might come in and see him, but if he was as great as he's trying to make everyone else to be, he wouldn't be teaching at Fletcher Academy. He would be a musician somewhere.
That is true. Yeah, I think that because he knows he has stories of what it takes for people to become great and how they got pushed into it. And that's actually a really good point that you bring up because you're right. If he did have that push or did have that teacher that did what he did to his students, you're entirely right. He probably would not be teaching. I mean, he was playing the piano.
And don't get me wrong, you need to be a very good musician to teach at a school like Schaefer Academy.
Right.
But
that's honestly, I think that's more about not more about, but it's so much more about hearing your band and knowing what sounds good, who's in pitch, who's out of pitch. Someone with an ear for music really has to be a teacher because they need to be able to point out, like what he did when he was like, we've got someone out of tune, let's fix this right now. But I think you're right. I don't think he had that push and I think that might be why he's so aggressive about it, because he might be upset that he's a teacher. Maybe that kind of is why he's so angry and aggressive towards people, because he didn't make it as a musician. That is that's a huge possibility that I could agree with. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm going to be thinking about that next time I watch the movie, and I think it's the way that could change the dynamics, because he could have been that kid that tried his hardest and it got him nowhere. Because let's be real, talent's not everything. Luck is a big aspect of what gets you
factor.
Gets you noticed. You could be the greatest musician of all time, and just if the right people don't hear you, it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, talent, and timing, and who true, as well is a huge thing of making it in certain areas, in certain fields of the arts. So
yeah. So,
yeah.
Oh, and I wanted to bring that up before we wrapped up. So was there anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrap up for this morning?
I just had one other note that I thought was extremely impressive for the quality of film that we got, especially with how many nominations it received. Apparently this was shot in 19 days and totally completed in post within 10 weeks, and it entered Sundance.
That's a crazy turnaround.
That is a crazy turnaround for the quality of film that we got. That is insane. So I just wanted to mention that. Not only did this movie come out very well and get a bunch of nominations, but 19 days of shooting with all of those,
that's
wow.
nuts. There's not a lot of locations, but if you just think about how quick cut those edits are, that's a lot of coverage. It's a lot of footage to shoot.
Yeah. So that's impressive, Damien Chazelle.
I know.
Keep it up.
John Carpenter said that they shot Halloween in 14 days, but there's not nearly as much coverage in Halloween as there is in Whiplash.
Yeah, so that was impressive. That's my last note, other than my Thrill House moment.
All right, let's get to the Thrill House moments. What's your Thrill House moment?
So for me, it's very early on. It's about 20 minutes in, and it's the first time we hear Whiplash, not with Neiman playing, but with the core drummer. The first time they kick it. Yeah, dun, 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 like so that kicks off and they're going, and then it's the subsequent scene that follows that where he notices a player out of tune, kicks out the one guy who wasn't even in tune, and says, "Hey, that was you." That whole scene, I was like, okay, this is going to be intense, and I'm really here for it, and the music is going to be incredible. So that's when I just was absolutely locked in.
Yeah, I would say honestly, not even like cheating, like that's mine as well.
Okay.
Like I said, I could probably even go earlier and say like the first interaction between Nyman and Fletcher might have been it, but let's be real. The lock-in moment is the "Not My Tempo" scene. Like it's just, there's a reason that he made that scene into the short film, and
yeah,
like I said, I watched it like a day after I watched Whiplash, and it was still like I was engrossed the entire time. And that is a perfect scene.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Not my fucking tempo. Are you dragging or are you rushing?
And then like I just love too when he like was first doing it, and at first he's kind of nice but a little stern. He's like, not quite there. Not my tempo. Not my. And then it's just like he throws the fucking chair, and it's like, oh, there it is.
Holy shit. And he's like, not my tempo. 5, 6, 7, 8, 5, 6. And then he starts slapping him in the face. Like, was I rushing or was I dragging? It's like, oh, so you do know the difference. Yep. So why are you trying to sabotage my fucking band?
Yep.
Holy cow.
Also, I just need to mention, like, I feel like Miles Teller, I feel like I blinked one day and he was a grown-ass adult. Like, cause like
his glow up,
yeah. So like I've seen him in Footloose. I actually like that Footloose remake. I knew what he looked like around Whiplash, and I just feel like I woke up one day and he's like Miles Teller now. Because like you look at his filmography, he hasn't been in that many films in the grand scheme of things. Like it's been a lot of films. Don't get me wrong, but like. Shit, Miles Teller that's in Top Gun Maverick does not seem like the same person that was in Footloose. Granted, I know it's like a 10-year difference, but still.
Yeah, he it seems like he grew up just like exponentially in those 10 years. He looks totally different. Which, by the way, I love him in that movie too. Top Gun Maverick is fucking amazing. Not to sidetrack there, but man, that movie's really good.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's all I've got, man.
Yeah, I think we I hit all my topics and feel very satisfied with this episode.
All right. Well, if people online want to hear more of you, tell us a little bit about Frightmares. Tell us where they can find Dust Bunnies, and tell us about your letterbox. Give us everything.
So if you want to hear me rant and rave about horror movies, you can check me out on Frightmares Podcast, available on Spotify, Apple, all the big names in podcasting. We are going through the history of horror. We just recorded our episode on Firestarter for 1984. Filling out the 80s, we've got The Return of the Living Dead, we've got Chopping Mall, we've got The Lost Boys, They Live, and Society coming up.
I know I'm going to be on one of those. I know I had to drop out for one because of just scheduling conflicts, but I know I'm coming up again. I know it.
Yeah, you're coming up in 91, I believe, for People Under the Stairs, I think.
I got to buy that Scream Factory.
So that you can follow Frightmares on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Slasher app at Frightmares Podcast, and then All Juice No Gin, same thing, streaming everywhere. Sobriety Podcast. We're doing episode 6 this week, and follow the Facebook page Dust Bunnies. Our image looks like very reminiscent of the Gremlins poster.
We will be filming. Poster. I really love that poster.
Yeah, my sister-in-law did a great job with that. So we are filming the 14th and 15th. Going to try and put together a teaser trailer as quickly as I can just to get it out there, but expect that by, I would say, latest, we're talking like the end of summer in August, and then we'll be submitting it to film festivals. And my letterbox is Dr. Proctor. Go give me a follow. I follow back and see what I'm watching. So that is all I have.
All right. And anyone who's been listening to this show for this long should know where to find me, but you can find me in pretty much everywhere at either Michael_Viers or just my full name, Michael Viers. You can also find me at Viers, 10, 2008 on Letterboxd. I'm also on TikTok at Shameless Picture Show. I talk about aspect ratios more than anyone else on that platform. It's kind of what sets me apart at this point. That's where I do all my physical media reviews. I'll have some new ones coming up soon, like part 2 of my Pulp Fiction review, which by the time this comes out will already be up. I think I also have my review coming up for Smile 2.
Yes.
And some other great stuff over there. I do reviews for Vinegar Syndrome. I do reviews for Severin at times, Film Masters, Mill Creek, whatever comes in the mail. Yeah, you guys should keep listening to this podcast. We have some really great guests coming up this season, and I'm just going to bury the lead now and tell everyone about it. We've not scheduled a date yet that this interview will be happening, but I can announce that later this season I will be doing an interview with the daughter of Vincent Price, Victoria Price. So I'm very excited about that. On top of that, I also have some cool stuff coming up with the Milwaukee Film Festival and its parent organization, Milwaukee Films. You're going to want to keep your eye on that. So we're going to be busy, but make sure you come back and give us a listen. Shame time, Shame Place, Shameless Picture Show.
The Shameless Picture Show is a proud member of the Cinepunks Podcast Network. The show is recorded in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and is hosted and produced by Michael Viers. The show is created by Michael Viers and Nick Richards. The Shameless Picture Show is edited by Austin Proctor of the Frightmares Podcast. Amanda Viers is the show's graphic designer and a big help behind the scenes. Our theme music was composed by Austin Proctor with narration by Nick Richards. The end credit music you're currently enjoying was generously provided to us by the band 10 Speed. And an extra special thank you to all our Patreon supporters and to our generous sponsors. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, and directly at Cinepunks.com.